All right, good morning, everyone. All right, so good morning and welcome to the Vancouver City Council meeting for Tuesday, December the 6th, 2022. This council meeting is being convened by electronic means as authorized under Part 14 of the Procedure Bylaw. The City of Vancouver electronic meetings. As such, council members and the public may participate in person or by electronic means. If a council member attending by electronic means loses connection during the voting process, staff are available to get you back online quickly while the voting process is suspended. The team members' contact information has been circulated to you. Video of council members speaking, presentations, and vote results will be projected on the live stream when available. Council members are reminded that, in accordance with Section 14.13 of the Procedure Bylaw, members must enable their video to confirm quorum. We do acknowledge that we are on the unceded homelands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. We thank them for having cared for this land and look forward to working with them in partnership as we continue to build this great city together. I also want to take a moment to recognize once again the immense contributions of all of our team members at the City of Vancouver who work incredibly hard every single day. We're very thankful. Clerk, may we please have roll call?
Mayor Simmons in the chair, Councilor Carr. Councilor Kirby-Young.
Present.
Councilor Dominato. Present. Councilor Bly is on a leave of absence for civic business. Councilor Boyle. Yes. Councilor Fry. Councilor Montague. Councilor Klassen. Councilor Meisner.
Present.
And Councilor Zhou. You have quorum, Mayor Sim.
Great, thank you very much. So I would like to begin today's council meeting with an acknowledgement. Today is a very significant day in the history of Canada. It is the 33rd anniversary of the murders of 14 engineering students at Polytechnique Montréal. This act of violent misogyny shook our country and led Parliament to designate December 6th as the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women. Today, we remember the 14 women and all others who have suffered all forms of gender-based violence. On a personal note, I do remember the day that it happened. It was my first year of university, and I just remember all of us sitting around the television sets and realizing, just seeing the horrific events unfold, and just realizing that it could be any one of us. It could have been our sisters or friends, and it was absolutely terrible. And so I do want to take an additional moment. In our societies, we always recognize, or we always know the people that are the perpetrators of these horrific acts, but we never acknowledge the actual individuals that were affected. And so I'd like to acknowledge them today, read out their names. The 14 women, their names were Genevieve Bergeron, Hélène Kogan, Natalie Croteau, Barbara Desjardins, Anne-Marie Edward, Maude Havernick, Maurice Legonier, Maurice Leclerc, Anne-Marie Lemay, Sonia Pelletier, Michelle Richard, Annie Saint-Arnaud, Annie Turcotte, and then I'm going to mispronounce this last name, but it's Barbara Klugnik Widajevic, I think. So the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women is about remembering and honoring those who have experienced gender-based violence. It's also a time to take action. Achieving a Canada and a Vancouver free from gender-based violence requires everyone living in this country to educate themselves and their families and communities on gender-based violence. Center the voices of survivors in our actions and speak up against all forms of misogyny and harmful behaviors. The Canadian flag on top of City Hall and on all city facilities across Vancouver are flying at half-mast today, and many of us wear white ribbons in remembrance and commitment to action. I would ask that we now observe a minute of silence. Thank you very much. Okay, so the plan for the day. Any comments on agenda items can be sent to council using the web form on the city's website. The link to that form will be tweeted out on @VanCityClerk. I also want to note the City of Vancouver's longstanding commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, including the utmost respect for all genders. I remind council that when addressing speakers and team members, we will avoid using gendered honorifics and instead refer to the person by first and last name, role, or title. Today, we have 3 administrative items: in-camera motion, adoption of minutes, and matters adopted on consent. 1 communication, reports 1A to 1F, including questions, debate, and decision on the 2023 budget. Reports 2 to 4 and 4 referral reports, 23 bylaws, 6 administrative motions, 6 council member motions, notice of council members' motions, and new business, inquiries, and other matters. Well, that's a full day. So the plan for today is we will break at noon for lunch, followed by an in-camera meeting. We will return at 3 p.m., continue to deal with the remainder of the agenda, and if needed, break at 5 p.m. for dinner, and return at 6 p.m. to complete the agenda if required. Now, council is required to meet in camera later this week. The reasons and authority under the Vancouver Charter are listed in the agenda. Would someone like to move a motion to go in camera later this week? Councillor Meisner, and then seconded by Councillor Carr. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. Okay, minutes 1 are from the inaugural council meeting on November the 7th, 2022. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Would someone like to move adoption? Councillor Carr, may we have a seconder? Councillor Klassen, all those in favor say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. All right, the motion carries unanimously. Minutes 2 are from the special council in-camera meeting of November the 8th, 2022. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Would someone like to move adoption? Councillor Joe, may we have a seconder? Councillor Meisner, all those in favor say yay. Okay. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Minutes 3 are from the council meeting of November the 15th, 2022. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Would someone like to move for adoption? Councillor Boyle, thank you. May we have a seconder? Councillor Dominato, thank you very much. All those in favor say yay. Okay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Minutes number 4 are from the council meeting following the Standing Committee on Policy and Strategic Priorities meeting of November the 16th and the 22nd of 2022. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Would someone like to move for adoption?
Kirby Young.
Kirby Young, thank you very much. May we have a seconder? Great, thank you very much. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. We're almost there. There's only 4 more. Minutes 5 are from the Special Council Local General Election Results 2022, meeting of November the 16th, 2022. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Would someone like to move for adoption? Councillor Fry, thank you very much. Seconder, Councillor Joe, thank you. All those in favor say yay. Okay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Minutes 6 are from the Special Council Business License Hearing meeting of November the 22nd, 2022. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Would someone like to move for adoption? Great, Councillor Montague, may we have a seconder? Councillor Klassen, thank you. All those in favor say yay. Yay.
Yay.
All those opposed say nay. Perfect, the motion carries unanimously. Minutes 7 are from the Special Council Business License Hearing meeting of November the 23rd, 2022. Are there any corrections to the minutes? No. Would someone like to move for adoption? Great. Councillor Fry, thank you. A seconder? Councillor Joe, thank you. All those in favor say yay. Yay.
Yay.
All those opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. Minutes 8 are from the Special Council 2023 budget meeting on November the 29th, 2022. Are there any corrections to these minutes? No. Would someone like to move for adoption? Councillor Klassen, thank you. May we have a seconder? Councillor Fry, thank you very much. All those in favor say yay. Yay.
Yay.
All those opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. All right. Matters adopted on consent. Council will now consider matters adopted on consent. We have communication number 1, reports 3 and 4. Would that be 2, 3, and 4 now? 2 to 4. Thank you very much. Reports 2, 3, and 4, and referral reports 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the consent agenda for council's consideration. Now, council may adopt the recommendations in the communications and reports 2, 3, and 4, and referral reports 1 through 4 collectively in a single motion. Does any member wish to hold any of the items for debate or questions for team members? Councillor Boyle.
Yes, I'd like to hold communication report 1.
Okay. Anyone else? No. Okay, great. So we will hold communications 1 for discussion. Does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on any of these consent items? Okay, so like I said, we do have communications 1. Oh, wait, sorry. Everything but communications 1. Thank you very much. So we have reports 2, 3, and 4, and referral reports 1, 2, 3, and 4 for consent approval. Would someone like to?
So
Awesome,
moved.
thank you very much. Beating me to the chase. Thank you, Councillor Kirby-Yung on the seconder. All those in favor say yay. Yay. All
Yay.
those opposed say nay. Okay, the motion carries unanimously. So the following items have been approved on consent. And that would be, so report number 2, Annual Financial Authorities 2023. Report number 3, 2023 Land Assessment Averaging Notice to BC Assessment Authority. Report number 4, Miscellaneous Charges to the Building Board of Appeal Bylaw. And then referral reports number 1, 2, 3, and 4, which are CD-1 rezoning, 3575 to 3655 Caslow Street, and 3580 to 3644 Slocan Street, and 2755 East 21st Avenue. Referral report number 2, which is CD-1 rezoning, 1063 to 1075 Barclay Street. Referral report number 3, CD-1 rezoning, 5562 to 5688 Manson Street. And referral report number 4, rezoning, 7057 to 7075 Oak Street and 1015 West 54th Avenue. Right. Okay. So we will now consider the communication held for questions to team members. We have communication number 1, acting mayor, deputy mayor, and roster of councillors to represent council 2023 that was held for questions by Councillor Boyle. Okay, Councillor Boyle. Oh, sorry. Where are we here?
Thanks. I don't have questions. I'm happy to move it and then move an amendment to it.
Okay. Okay, so, sorry, I'm going to need a little help here. Oh. So you have to join the amendment queue, is that right? Okay. Councillor Boyle, you're up.
Thanks. I circulated a few amendments, just switching dates for acting mayor with Councillor Bly and for deputy mayor with Councillor Carr, and thanks to them for being adaptable to that, so that I am not, so I can parent as well for certain events. So that's all. Just
awesome. Other
people agree to these changes, so hopefully they're not controversial at all.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carr, would you like to rebut now, or?
No, I'm fine with that, but I have an amendment of my own.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want to deal with that amendment first.
Oh, okay. So then we just vote on that? Is that right? All right, so I guess we're going to vote on Councillor Boyle's amendment. All those in favor say yay? Yay. All those opposed say nay? All right, the motion by Councillor Boyle to amend Communications 1 passes unanimously. Councillor Carr.
Yes, I have a further amendment, which I have circulated this morning, to have myself replaced by Councillor Fry as acting mayor for the month of December. It's up on the screen. Thank you.
Awesome.
Not this December, next December.
Great. Thank you very much. So can we have a seconder? Councillor Fry beat you to the punch. Sorry. All those in favor say yay. Okay. All those opposed say nay. It passes unanimously. Isn't it great how we can all work together? This is awesome. Okay, where are we now? Communications. All right. So reports. We will now consider those reports held for debate or questions to team members. So the 2023 capital and operating budget. At the special council meeting on November the 29th, 2022, council received a presentation, asked questions to the team members, and heard from speakers regarding the 2023 capital and operating budget and related reports. Council, we will now consider the reports in the order they are listed on the agenda for the 2023 capital and operating budget. The first report is 1A, which is the 2023 engineering fees. Okay, so, sorry, so. Okay. Okay, so where would that be here? Sorry, just bear with us for 1 sec. All right, I apologize for that. We do have to go back to communications one last time to approve all the changes. So we're going to be voting on the main communications that has been or as amended. Would someone like to move a motion? Councillor Carr, thank you very much. Is there a seconder? Councillor Montague, thank you very much. So council, is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, I'm now going to call a vote. Clerk, can you take us to the voting panel, please? Council, please register your vote. Oh, okay, there we go. All right. So the vote passes unanimously with Councillor Bly away on civic business. Great. Okay, so we'll go through the reports again. I'll skip the part that I read. The first report that we're going to be discussing is 1A, 2023 engineering fees. So once again, does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on this item? All right, seeing none, are there any questions? No? Would someone like to move the recommendations in the report? Thank you, Councillor Kirby-Yung, and seconded by Councillor Dominato. Is there any discussion? Okay, reminder that any council member whose video is disabled will be marked absent for the vote pursuant to section 14.13 of the procedure bylaw. I'm now going to call the vote. Clerk, can you please take us to the voting screen? Council, please register your vote on the voting panel. Yes. One at a time. So we're just voting on 1A right now. Yep, so it'd be the 2023 engineering fees. Okay, great. All right, so the motion passes unanimously with Councillor Bly being absent. The next item is item 1B, the 2022 Annual Review of Water Rates and Waterworks Bylaw Amendments. Does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on this item? Are there any questions? Would someone like to move the recommendations in this report? Councillor Fry, thank you very much. Is there a seconder? Councillor Montague, thank you very much. Is there any discussion? I'm just going to pause for 1 sec. Great. Got a good 7 minutes off this meeting. Okay, that being said, where am I here? Okay, so I'm now going to call the vote. Clerk, can you please take us to the voting screen? Council, please register your vote on the voting panel. Okay, once again, the motion carries unanimously with Councillor Bly being away for civic business. The next item is item 1C, the 2022 Annual Review of Sewer Rates under the Sewer and Watercourse Bylaw. Does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on this item? Are there any questions? Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Kirby-Yung, for moving the report. Is there a seconder? Councillor Fry, thank you very much. Is there any discussion? Okay. So I'm now going to call the vote. Clerk, can you please take us to the voting screen? Council, please register your vote on the voting panel. Councillor Dominato. Oh, there we go. All right, the motion carries unanimously once again with Councillor Bly being away on civic business. The next item is item 1D, 2022 Solid Waste Utility SWU fees and bylaw changes. Does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on this item? No? Are there any questions? Would someone like to move the recommendations of this report? Councillor Joe, thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Dominato, thank you very much. Is there any discussion? All right, I'm now going to call the vote. Clerk, can you please take us to the voting screen? Council, please register your vote on the voting panel. Okay, once again, carries unanimously with Councillor Bly away on civic business. Item 1E, the 2022 False Creek Neighborhood Energy Utility, or NEU, customer rates. Does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on this item? No? Are there any questions? Would someone like to, all right, Councillor Fry, thank you. Sorry. Yep. Can I have you as a seconder? Councillor Carr, thank you very much. Is there any discussion? No, great. I'm now going to call the vote. Clerk, can you please take us to the voting screen, and Council, please register your vote. All right. Once again, motion carries unanimously with Councillor Bly being away on civic business. 1F, the 2002 capital and operating budget. Does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on this item? No? Okay. Oh, wait a sec. Are there any questions on this item? Yeah, Councillor Joe.
My question here is how much money we have in our reserve balance, and is it possible to use some of the reserve money for some of the actual budget without increasing the tax?
Good morning, Patrice Stimpy, General Manager of Finance, Risk and Supply Chain Management. We have, I think what you're referring to is our stabilization reserve. We have a number of reserves. Most of them have statutory or other commitments. The stabilization reserve is the reserve that we use for unexpected events because we aren't allowed to borrow for operating needs. At the end of last year, it was about $50 million that was not committed to any other items. Council has approved the use of that reserve for an interim use related to the motion on increasing the number of police officers and hiring new nurses as well. The reason we don't recommend using the reserve for budget purposes is because it's only one time. Once you take it out of the reserve, it only can fund something that is for this 1 year. And then next year, if you want to continue, you have to increase taxes again. So that's why reserves are really held for those one-time events that are not predicted. If it's something that we know and it's an ongoing expense, we should build it into the budget. That helps. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Thanks. I also have a question around split assessment. I've been asked since the provincial legislation came in what the likely city timeline is for being able to implement it.
Grace Chang, Director of Long-Term Financial Strategy. So the legislation was introduced in October, and then it got the royal assent on November 3rd. So staff is working really hard to kind of like come up with some sort of criteria and eligibility and really try to design the program alongside the land assessment averaging in order to meet the legislative requirement. We will be bringing back to council for briefing and also ultimately for your consideration and approval before end of March. So so those are in the works.
So in time for the
2023.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you. I look forward to that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fry.
Yeah, thanks. Sort of a process question, because this is sort of new territory for us, that that recommendation A, council received for information the 2023 draft budget, as opposed to, how we would typically approve it around this time. So operationally, what does this mean for programs that we're approving for Q1? Should things change significantly when we actually have a final decision on the budget? What does that mean for our various programs?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. So we did adjust our operating budget policy in the last term to allow us to delay the approval of the operating budget into a new year when there's a new council, but also to make sure that we had an interim budget so that programs could continue. Because without a budget, there's not really any direction. Do we continue, with all the various programs, the staffing, et cetera? So the purpose of doing the current state budget is just for that. You're aware that this is the cost of the services and the programs we have today, and we'll continue that on until such time as we have a final budget for 2023, and just acknowledging that the tax rate, if nothing else happened, would be in the area of 5%. So obviously there's work to do before the final budget. You're not approving the budget, but you're allowing us to continue with this interim budget until the final budget is approved.
So in the event that we see, emergent priorities for this council majority that maybe take away from some of the kind of currently funded, do those become sort of sunk costs if we're kind of defunding other things to pay for new priorities?
I suppose if council had made a decision today on trade-offs, then the funding would go immediately to those new priorities. So yes, things will continue for the for the beginning of the year until such time you bring in. And actually, we are looking to have a final decision on the budget by March 7th, so we can have time to do all of the other tax-related calculations in order to be able to send out our tax bill in the spring. So it would be really over the next 2 months.
Would we be
getting to make that decision, and council can do that earlier if they so choose.
Would we be getting a sense or a report back on what potential sunk costs might be? Should we see signals that things are changing?
If there was particular things that you wanted us to bring forward, costs related to certain programs, we can share that with you. Yes. Okay. So you'd have a sense of that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carr?
Yes. Councillor Fry did ask questions that were of concern to me too, to make sure that that we have ongoing operations that are secure so main programs are continuing. I've got assurance from you, Ms. Impey, about that, so thank you. I just wanted to take a moment in speaking to the capital budget in particular, that I did send a ream of questions to staff, and I just want to acknowledge the in-depth responses I received from staff. My concerns lay largely around whether or not we were supplying enough enough funding in that budget to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We are on a very dire path, as the latest COP27 meetings just indicated. We have not reduced fossil fuels to the degree that we absolutely must, nor increased renewables, nor decreased GHGs globally. So emissions are still on the rise, and this is very bleak in terms of our children's future. So I was super happy to see that we are actually progressing at our city level with retrofitting buildings, with infrastructure in terms of reducing car use and increasing active transportation and mobility. I think it's I believe the state was 100 of the city's 640 buildings have already had energy retrofits, reducing our carbon pollution by 27%.
Point of procedure, Mayor. Are we not on questions at this point and not on comments?
Oh,
Thank you. Councillor Carr, do you have a question?
no, I don't. My questions were sent in and they're all answered. So
Okay.
I
We will have an opportunity for comments after questions.
yes, well, everybody can just remember what I said now. Well, thank you. So I'm good to go.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Councillor Kirby-Young. Okay, Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Mayor. Just circling back on some of the questions we posed last week, just around the Vancouver Police Board endorsed budget that was sent and I think has now been received by City. Could you walk us through how that translates? And maybe it's a restated budget document to see that, but we have a different number right now included in the sort of current state because we didn't have that. And I'm just curious if you could expand on that and how that works out in terms of the VPD board's ask, what's included in our current budget, how that translates into property tax increase.
Yes, I can give you sort of a simplified version. If you need more details, we can get that for you. The current budget, obviously, our current state budget is an increase from last year, and approximately 2% tax increase relates to the increases in VPD just to continue with their current staffing, et cetera. And then VPD's budget includes additional staffing. It also has a number of other costs, and that's about $21 million more than the current state budget. Each percentage of property tax is approximately $9 million, so that's a little bit more than another 2%. So where we have our 5% in the current state that's been presented, it would be 7% if there's no other changes and the VPD budget was adopted as presented. Now, the council motion that you had put forward earlier is slightly less than that, and so over the next, between now and finalizing the budget, council would need to make a determination on where they wanted to land on that.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and maybe we can take it offline as a sort of maybe perhaps a memo or something to council would be helpful. I wanted to circle back. Prior to the election, there were resolutions passed by council which gave direction for inclusion of certain items in the draft budget. One, for example, it comes to mind is the seniors planner. Another was around provision to set aside $700,000 for an oil and gas class action lawsuit. I'm just curious, are those embedded in the current state budget that has been circulated to council and posted publicly?
In the
those assumptions
that's
in there?
been circulated, we do note those motions, but that they were not funded in this current state because the current state is the current state. So council would then make a decision, we want to fund it or we don't want to fund those additional things. So if you need another copy of that, we can send that to you, what's not included.
Okay, no, that's helpful. I'll pause my questions there. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and thanks, staff, for all the work and the overview and the report. I just want to respond and follow up on some of Councillor Fry's questions earlier with respect to, you asked about some of the sunk costs, but I guess I'll ask the question a different way. If council had approved the 2023 draft budget as staff had presented it and followed that procedure, we would not have had an opportunity to include the priorities of this council. It would effectively be a status quo scenario. Is that correct?
If you approved it as is, yes, you would amend it and then add or make your adjustments to it would be the process.
Okay. And then following up on that, there were a number of areas, I think, where council had identified through the previous budget discussion that there were pressures on some critical services. And I'm thinking of things like sanitation and street cleaning, where we did top-ups to that, for example, that were not included in this draft budget. So we would see a reduction in resources in some of those areas where we're still stressed. Is that right?
In the first quarter, I think those would be reduced. Yes, because those were one-time funding from last year. Yeah.
Right. And so to your point around one-time funding, we really sort of taking the time would allow us to look at ongoing funding for areas that council as a whole determines are a priority, as opposed to seeing that sort of dip and rise in service levels.
Yeah, and I think benefiting from some of the learnings of last year and the one time, what does that tell us? And is there an ongoing need that would be added as ongoing tax dollars? Right?
Okay. And as part of, and in terms of council looking for some of that information as we're spending the time, and we have the time to do the due diligence on the budget, I'm sure that council will continue to be able to ask questions to get some of that information in terms of how the impact of those services. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can continue to send those to the city manager or myself, and we'll make sure they get consolidated and answered in a timely manner.
Okay. And then with respects to capital, because I know that we've had such a gap in terms of infrastructure renewal, and it was quite, I think, impactful when staff had quantified during the budget presentations, I believe last summer in some of the briefings, that we had an $800 million gap in infrastructure funding annually, and that with some additional investment in this capital plan, if I recall correctly, we had narrowed that gap to about $500 million, but still obviously a huge divide. So can you speak to the how we're funding the infrastructure renewal, if there's sort of 1% allocated, if that's correct, in the property tax, and how much we have to go given our aging infrastructure and that gap that staff identified previously?
Yes, so the model that we put together is to continue to add 1% property tax each year ongoing, and it will take us, a number of decades to get to having the funding that will match our estimated renewal needs. We do, though, in between those times, we do look at, we have the opportunity with senior government to get funding that also helps impact our infrastructure renewal. So that helps to fill the gap. So we'll continue to kind of look at, as long as that trend is continuing, the gap is continuing to close, we're going in the right direction. If it, and sometimes the senior government can help close that gap faster. If it starts to widen, then we would come back to council.
Okay, but it will require that
build on the
commitment to
strategy.
kind of continued
It would,
investment.
yes.
Can you, Patrice, in the last bit of time I have, can you comment generally around sort of global comments around how the aging nature of Vancouver's infrastructure and how sort of significant the degradation is in some of the facilities, or what some of the risks are of not renewing that infrastructure? Think about sewers, for example,
others join if
community
they
centers.
like to add. I think one of the biggest challenges is that it's a timing issue as well. So, the city grew very much many years ago, and we built a number of community centers a number of years ago. So those tend to come up for renewal in large chunks, and we tend to, manage our operating budget on more of a sort of linear basis. So we do have sort of these areas where we are now needing to invest more because of that timing. And then the other one is in the infrastructure for our sewer, particularly in separating the sewer system. That's obviously a regulatory requirement as well, which drives the renewal.
Okay, and then on the sewers, the last bit of time I had, I know I brought a motion to expedite the sewer separation, obviously for sort of environmental benefits, but also because the aging nature of the infrastructure. Can you comment on where we are at in that percentage? I think our goal is 1.2, but where we started and where we are now? Or I should say 1.2% per year, right?
We're Lon Leclerc, General Manager of Engineering Services. Currently, our sewer system is approximately 55% separated. So there's a number of years ahead of us to correct that. We will be reporting back to Council in the first quarter on actions we can take to kind of deliver the outcomes, which is healthy water, that might deliver more results in advance of a complete separation of our sewer system. So it's a bigger conversation, but we'll be bringing that to Council in the first quarter.
Thanks, Lon. That's my time. Thank you.
Councillor Carr?
Questions?
Questions?
Thank you. Yeah, my first question is regarding Vancouver Fire Rescue Services. We have an interim budget that is going to allow us to proceed in the first quarter, but I don't see any increase in the number of positions. We made a commitment as a council to actually implementing the Dark Horse report, which was a review of our fire service in comparison to much more broader standards, North America wide. And we're short about 122 positions, and we still are, of those we've filled some, we're still short 55. Can you tell me if the interim operating budget, taking up a quarter of the year, is going to place any excess burden on the ability for us for the rest of the year to look at increasing those fire service positions in line with our commitment around the Dark Horse report goals?
Are you referring financially?
Correct.
So that would be something that, again, over the next 2 months, as council determines their trade-offs for the budget, would bring that forward. So, but it's not included. So any incremental costs, again, similar to VPD, would be in addition to the property tax that's been highlighted in the current state.
So it's still possible to do that.
Yes.
And to make that modification to the budget when it is finally debated for approval. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And one final question regarding climate again. I did note in my preamble before that we have had some success in retrofitting buildings, et cetera. But the figures I'm looking at for the reduction in GHGs do not at this point match the degree to which we have committed to reduce GHGs by 2030, which is 50%. So it doesn't look like we're on track for that right now. At 25% and well, 8 years left to go. That's a lot more that we have to get to. I wonder if I can have a comment on what kind of extra budget we might need in order to reduce those or sources of funding, if it's not our own, to reduce those GHGs.
Yeah, so in the Climate Emergency Action Plan, the team did identify that we have a gap in the funding. We've continued to, council has approved different levels of funding for different programs, but then we are still significantly behind.
Like 100 million
revenue.
or?
I think the number is about 100.
I have 15 seconds, so.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Brad Bedell, Director of Sustainability. Thank you for the question. We are on track for our civic facilities to hit our 2030 target. We are short on the community-facing side, so that's where the budget shortfall would be on the public-facing side.
Okay. Yep. More discussion to have about that. Thank you.
Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Patrice. I just wanted to follow up a question. I asked a similar question at Metro Vancouver recently, is that as we're projecting, sort of anticipating costs into the future, and including property tax increases, and even looking at this year, we also have the opportunity to get federal and provincial grants, and not just capital. I'm talking more on the operating side to support programming. And I'm just curious about what kind of assumptions we're working from in terms of building the budget and in terms of anticipated provincial and or federal funds that might support us on the operating side and take away the pressure of increasing property taxes, and recognizing we have a colleague right now in Ottawa who's advocating at FCM for additional supports at that level. How are we constructing the budget, and what kind of assumptions are we building in around that potential for provincial and federal funds?
Right. In the current state budget, what we would include is sort of the known funding. So our traditional funding from TransLink, et cetera, those are built in. And in the capital budget, we have set aside funding in emerging priorities that could be funding that could match federal programs or programs that we don't know as yet. So we only have included in either budget really ones that are confirmed. And then anything new, we would come back and make adjustments.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. One more question. I'm wondering, I know I've been hearing from a number of members of the public about items that aren't included in the draft state budget that they're hoping make sure get funded. Can you just remind us for the public of how the public will have an opportunity to make those voices heard, and sort of, because this is a new whole timeline for us, what the next couple months of budget decisions look like?
Yes, yeah, happy to do that. So in January, we will do a public engagement on the budget. In non-election years, we do that in the fall. So there will be a satisfaction survey and a budget survey that comes out in January, which then we will share with council in February. That will inform your trade-offs.
Share with council in public in February?
Yes.
Okay. And then it will come to the meeting around March 7th for a final decision. Okay. Really appreciate that. Thanks. That's all.
All right, so are there any more questions? Seeing none, would someone like to move the report, would someone like to move the recommendations in the report? And I just want to be very clear. This is for the approval of the capital budget and to defer the approval of the operating budget to quarter one or the next quarter. So would someone like to move? Thank you very much, Councillor Kirby-Yung. Is there a seconder? Thank you very much, Councillor Dominato. Is there any discussion? Nope, seeing none, I'm going to call to the vote now. Clerk, can you please take us to the voting screen? Great, and Council, can you please register your vote? All right, seems like the motion passes unanimously with Councillor Bly being away on civic business. All right, so the next item is the bylaws. We have 23 bylaws on the agenda for enactment. Council members who are not sorry, I have to read that. Council members who were not present for the meetings related to the public hearing enactment bylaws must confirm that they have reviewed the proceedings of the meetings if they wish to vote on the enactment. Okay, so. Great. No, we're good. Thank you. There's a little bit of mental math going on there. Bylaw number 14 is for the public hearing of January the 23rd and 30th of 2022. Councillor Boyle was absent for this item at the public hearing, and Councillors Klassen, Meisner, Montague, Joe, and myself were not on council at the time of this item at the public hearing. Councillor Boyle, have you reviewed the proceedings, and will you be voting on the enactment?
I have and I will.
Sorry, you have?
I have.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Klassen?
I have and I will.
You have not?
No, I have.
You have, sorry. Yes. Thank you very much. Councillor Meisner?
I have and I will.
Okay. Councillor Montague?
I have reviewed and I will be voting.
Thank you. Councillor Joe? Great, thank you. And myself, I have not reviewed, so I will not be voting on this motion. Bylaw number 15 is from the public hearing of May 14th, 2019. Councillors Klassen, Meisner, Montague, Joe, and myself were not on council at the time of this item at public hearing. Councillor Klassen, have you reviewed the proceedings and will you be voting on the enactment?
I have reviewed and I will be voting.
Thank you. Councillor Meisner?
I have reviewed and I will be voting.
Thank you. Councillor Montague?
I have reviewed, will be voting.
Thank you. Councillor Joe? Thank you. And myself, I have not reviewed, so I will not be voting on this item. Bylaw 18 is from the public hearing of April the 14th, 29th, and 21st, 2022, and the council meeting on April the 26th, 2022. Councillors Klassen, Meisner, Montague, Joe, and myself were not on council at the time of this item public hearing. However, at the council meeting on November the 15th, 2022, Councillors Klassen, Meisner, Montague, and Joe advised that they have reviewed the proceedings. I have not reviewed the proceedings, so I will not be voting on this item. Does any member wish to hold any of the bylaws for debate, separate vote, or for conflict of interest? Great. Seeing none, would someone like to move the motion to adopt bylaws 1 through 23? Thank you, Councillor Montague. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Meisner. Council, is there any discussion? All right. All those in favor say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. The list of approved bylaws can be found on the city's website. Okay, so there are 6 administrative motions on the agenda. The first one is approval of form of development, 1680 East 12th Avenue, formerly 1650 East 12th Avenue. Does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on this motion? Council, are there any questions to staff? Would someone like to move a motion? A motion. Okay, Councillor Joe, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Klassen. Council, is there any discussion? Okay. All those in favor say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. The second one is approval of form of development, 3449 through 3479 West 41st Avenue and 5664 Collingwood Street. Does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on this motion? Council, are there any questions to staff? Okay. Would someone like to move the motion? Councillor Montague, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Meisner. Council, is there any discussion? Okay. All those in favor say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. Okay. The motion carries unanimously. Number 3, approval of form of development, 4930 James Street, formerly 4902 James Street. Does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on this motion? Council, are there any questions to staff? Would someone like to move the motion? Thank you, Councillor Dominato. Seconder? Councillor Carr, thank you very much. Council, is there any discussion? All those in favor say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Approval of form of development, 2538 Birch Street. Does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on this motion? Council, are there any questions to staff? Would someone like to move the motion? Councillor Joe, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Carr, thank you. Council, is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Approval of form of development, 3104 Southeast Marine Drive, formerly 8420 Kerr Street. Does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on this motion? Great. Council, are there any questions to staff? Would someone like to move the motion? Councillor Dominato, seconded by Councillor Carr. Council, is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Number 6, approval of form of development, 3565 Sawmill Crescent. Does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on this motion? Council, are there any questions to staff? Would someone like to move the motion? Councillor Dominato, thank you. Seconded. Councillor Joe, thank you. Council, is there any discussion? Great. All those in favor say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. Great. The motion carries unanimously. Now, we have 6 council member motions on the agenda today. Motion B1 is requests for leave of absence as follows. Councillor Boyle for personal reasons from meetings on April the 11th, 2023, May 30th, 2023, and May the 31st, 2023. We have Councillor Dominato for personal reasons from meetings on December the 7th, 2022 from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. Is there a mover? Thank you, Councillor Montague. Carr, seconded. All those in favor say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. Great. The motion carries unanimously. Motion B2 is reducing barriers and deepening affordability for nonprofit, co-op, and social housing in every neighborhood, and is to be introduced and moved by Councillor Boyle. Councillor Boyle, do you want to introduce the motion, please?
This motion is based on tangible advice and requests from nonprofit and co-op housing providers about the steps that the city can take to reduce barriers and increase affordability for non-market housing. We all know we're in a housing crisis. People are sleeping in cars and in parks, and low and middle income earners are struggling to afford to stay in Vancouver. Families are being priced out. Seniors are being priced out. Local businesses are struggling to hire workers. The school board and health authorities are struggling to hire. There's no one silver bullet, but this may be as close as we'll get. Delegating final approval for staff for housing we know we need reduces risk, it reduces costs, and it increases the chances of receiving senior government funding and brings more homes online more quickly. It's supported by housing experts, business leaders, seniors organizations, faith leaders, parents, renters, and more. And most of us committed to supporting this approach during the election. It aligns with a lot of shared priorities about speeding up the city's processes and doubling the number of co-op homes. So my pitch is, let's not be as dysfunctional as the last council. Let's make it faster and easier to build the housing that we know Vancouverites need.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Boyle. Are there any questions for Councillor Boyle? No? Okay. Would someone like to second the motion? Thank you, Councillor Dominato. Now, we have received requests to speak to this motion. If council would like to hear the speakers, we can refer the motion to tomorrow's Standing Committee on Policy and Strategic Priorities meeting on Wednesday, December the 7th, 2022, which starts at 9:30 a.m. Would someone like to move referral? Thank you, Councillor Boyle, seconded by Councillor Dominato. All those in favor say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. Great. The motion is referred to tomorrow's Standing Committee meeting. Motion B3 is establishing fixed-rate community amenity contributions, or CACs, for low-rise and medium-rise projects citywide, and is to be introduced by and moved by Councillor Kirby-Yung.
Thanks, Mayor. As the Mayor stated, the title is pretty self-explanatory, and the intention of this motion is to move away from target CACs to fixed-rate community amenity contributions, specifically for low-rise and medium-rise projects citywide. And the reason for this is a recognition that CACs play a valuable and critical role in allowing Vancouver to support growth in the delivery of public amenities that are so essential to quality of life, whether it's community centers, parks, and other sort of facilities that people value, particularly when we're living in an increasingly dense city. However, the target approach and the negotiated approach can be lengthy and can be onerous for housing providers, and that has led to some frustration with respects to the timeline and the delays that can cause in getting that housing to market. And so this really is a very straightforward motion in terms of a recognition that having predictability will enable expediting those timelines. And folks as well that are working in the housing sector to have spend their time and effort, quite honestly, on delivering the housing itself, as opposed to a lengthy negotiation process. And it does ask staff to report back because we would typically in the first quarter of next year be looking at fee adjustments for the existing target CACs. And so we're looking for a report back as to how and when this would be feasible to implement it. So that's essentially the substance of the motion. I would note that other municipalities, Coquitlam did this 5 years ago, and others have gone to this. And it still leaves the larger projects which are substantive projects or where there may be substantive land lift with the opportunity for the city to have those conversations, but provides that sort of middle ground and predictability. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Boyle, it looks like
I just have a quick question, which is I'm wondering if Councillor Kirby-Yung, if you have a sense of what percentage of developments or number of developments would switch from negotiated to set. Maybe not on hand. I'm just curious if we have a sense of how many projects would be impacted.
Put my mic on. That's a really great question, and I'd like to have the answer. I know that we've often asked at council how many development projects do we have in the pipeline at any given point, for example, and that's difficult sometimes for staff to quantify that number. But I think in the report back, we'll get a better sense of the quantification of how many folks it's going to affect.
Okay, totally. I'm happy to second if we're there.
Thank you very much. Jump the gun there. Thank you. Answer that. So on the record, Councillor Boyle seconding the motion. We've received requests to speak to this motion. If council would like to hear the speakers, we can refer the motion to tomorrow's Standing Committee on Policy and Strategic Priorities meeting on Wednesday, December the 7th, 2022, which starts at 9:30 a.m. Would someone like to move to referral? Thank you, Councillor Meisner, seconded by Councillor Dominato. All those in favor say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. Thank you. The motion is referred to tomorrow's standing committee meeting. Motion B4 is reviewing Vancouver's age-friendly action plan and aligning with the WHO's age-friendly cities framework, and is to be introduced and moved by Councillor Klassen. Councillor Klassen, can you put yourself in the queue, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm tabling this motion just to see if we can build upon previous work. The City of Vancouver's own age-friendly city action plan was published in 2015. We're now well past 7 years after that time, and our aging demographic is considered to be a threat, an existential threat to the future of our country, as stated by RBC thought leadership in a very strongly presented report in 2020. I think that we need to hear back from staff on the measures that we can take to make our city more resilient for an aging population. It's expected that 1 in 4 Vancouverites around the time 2030 will be age 65 and over. This will have significant pressures on various systemic aspects of service delivery, and we need to really look at this. So I'm putting this forward as a way for us to review the status of our age-friendly actions, and as well to see if we can align with the WHO's own age-friendly cities framework, which is not the be-all, end-all, but I think it is a step in the right direction for all of our departments to start working across for interdepartmental work that will help us become a more resilient city for seniors and older adults in Vancouver. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Klassen. Does anybody have questions for Councillor Klassen? Right, seeing none, would someone like to second the motion? Great, thank you, Councillor Dominato. Now we have received requests to speak to this motion as well, so if Council would like to hear the speakers, we can refer the motion to tomorrow's Standing Committee on Policy and Strategic Priorities meeting on Wednesday, December the 7th, 2022, which starts at 9:30 a.m. Would someone like to move to referral? Great, Councillor Klassen, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Dominato. All those in favor say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. Great. The motion is referred to tomorrow's Standing Committee meeting. Motion number 5, harmonizing City of Vancouver and provincial childcare policies and licensing requirements, and is to be introduced and moved by Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Mayor.
Sorry, and Councillor Dominato, can you put yourself in the queue?
Oh, sorry.
Great. Thank you very much.
There we go. Thanks, Mayor. It's an honor to introduce this motion today. Childcare is of critical importance for working parents and caregivers. Not only does it allow for parents and caregivers to be active participants in the job market and to be gainfully employed to support their families, it also supports women's equity and promotes healthy development outcomes for children. The City of Vancouver was an early leader in childcare provision and guidelines when senior levels of government were not playing a key role. We know there are currently shortfalls in supply. Our city team estimates we need to grow the supply by 16,000 spaces. 7,500 full-day spaces for 0 to 5, and 8,500 spaces for school-age children. The greatest gaps are for children under the age of 3 and school-age children. Less than half of families seeking licensed childcare in Vancouver today can actually find a full-time space. Staff confirmed this past week we have roughly 600 to 700 childcare spaces in the pipeline. We have an unprecedented opportunity right now to accelerate the supply of childcare spaces by benefiting from the Canada-British Columbia Early Learning and Childcare Agreement renewed for 2021-2025. This agreement includes a strong focus on increasing the accessibility of childcare options by increasing the number of spaces. And based on our population, Vancouver's portion of space creation targets through this agreement is approximately 4,000 spaces by 2028. The province is currently developing and finalizing provincial design standards, which includes consideration of the City of Vancouver's guidelines. And so we believe it is a perfect timing to look at harmonizing these guidelines where it makes sense and where this harmonization would increase supply in Vancouver. Vancouver has a constrained land base and built environment, which can sometimes make it difficult to add space. We are looking for increased flexibility, for example, around renovation of existing buildings. As part of this motion, we'll be introducing amendments to respond to feedback from the childcare sector and to address play space and climate considerations. I've personally been through the experience of trying to find safe, quality childcare for my children in this city, and it was one of the most stressful experiences as I had my back to work date looming. We need to increase the supply of quality childcare so that parents and caregivers aren't left in limbo and have confidence their children are safe and cared for when they return to work or to post-secondary education. Thank you, Mayor.
Great. Thank you very much. Councillor Carr?
Yes, thank you. Question to you regarding the harmonization. I know that the provincial standards differ from Vancouver standards, especially around the access to open space. And I'm wondering if your intent is to see harmonization that might result in a reduction of access to open space and outdoor space for children in Vancouver.
Thanks, Councillor Carr. What we're hoping is that staff will look at the provincial standards and guidelines, which, as I noted in my comments, are actually bringing in provincial standards that don't exist today. And the hope is to look at where we can create more spaces. One amendment you'll see coming forward is how we might collaborate with Vancouver Park Board around adjacency to city parks, because my kids went to a daycare that was on city park land, and they were able to use not only the play space provided as part of the daycare, but also the adjacent space of the park. And so that's one example of where we might also add green space for kids to play.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Councillor Dominato? Great. Would someone like to second the motion? Thank you, Councillor Kirby-Yung. Now, we have received requests to speak to this motion, so if Council would like to hear the speakers, we can refer the motion to tomorrow's Standing Committee on Policy and Strategic Priorities meeting on Wednesday, December the 7th, 2022, which starts at 9:30 a.m. Would someone like to move referral? Thank you, Councillor Kirby-Yung, seconded by Councillor Klassen. All those in favor say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. Great. The motion is referred to tomorrow's Standing Committee meeting. Motion 6 is implementing body-worn cameras, or BWC, for the Vancouver Police Department, and is to be introduced and moved by Councillor Joe. Councillor Joe, can you please put yourself in? Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. So I'm honored to introduce this motion. This motion fulfills the commitment that we brought forward during the election, which is also aligned with what we learned from the public. The implementation of body-worn camera will enhance accountability and transparency in public safety. That benefits everyone. The video evidence will provide an independent, unbiased, and objective way to capture the interactions between the community and the police officers. Since first used in 2005, the body-worn camera has been adopted by numerous police forces around the world. Many studies and evaluations shows positive outcomes. There was 1 year study in California shows that civilian complaints against police officers reduced significantly by 88%. And the incidents involving the use of force decreased by 59%. With the exact cost of implementing such a program still unclear, so this motion directs the staff work with stakeholders to identify the cost. Having said that, there might be some potential cost-saving opportunities in the long run. So as we all know, some of the court cases might last for years due to the lack of evidence. So you could imagine all the costs associated with the police investigation, with the legal process, with the administration cost. So no doubt, this body-worn camera will make the investigation much easier and faster. In addition, the premium EBIS plan in addressing the public safety issue. So I hope to explore funding options with the provincial government. I think the potential privacy issue will be managed too, but through setting up rules and policies. So I think as outlined in the motion, so we hope the body-worn camera could be equipped with all frontline and patrol officers by 2025, and staff to report back to council by early 2024 with the cost and other information. But we need to start the process now.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Joe. And you do have some questions, Councillor Boyle.
Thanks so much, and thanks for sending follow-up research. I'm curious, the police board request asks for funding for a pilot. This motion doesn't mention a pilot, so I'm wondering if the intention is to pilot it and measure the impacts to have that inform the next steps, or it sounds like the motion is saying, let's do this for everyone by 2025, which doesn't align with the idea of a pilot in my mind. I'm just hoping for clarification there.
Also, it's about $200,000 in the budget.
Okay, appreciate that clarification.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle. Councillor Fry?
Yeah, so in your whereas 11, it talks about policing standards for the deployment of body-worn cameras and specifically evokes the idea that the police board must, among other things, ensure that a privacy impact assessment has been completed and approved. Has that been done?
Okay, so thanks, Councillor Fry. So this is an operational question. So we're expecting the staff come back with those recommendations and policies. So that's exactly this motion is about. But I have full confidence that we have set up very good policies and rules. And also there are guidelines regarding the privacy impact assessment.
But just to be clear, this resolution is asking for council to formally support and implement a body-worn camera program, not a pilot, but an actual program by 2025.
Yeah, that's right. But we need to hear the more information from the staffs. So they're going to work with stakeholders and bring back those information to the council for more discussion.
Okay. Out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Councillor Joe, I have you on the list again. Is that
Oh, no, that was something wrong. Okay.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. Oh.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other questions for Councillor Joe, would someone like to second the motion? Councillor Montague, thank you very much. Now, we have once again received requests to speak to this motion. So if council would like to hear the speakers, we can refer the motion to tomorrow's Standing Committee on Policy and Strategic Priorities meeting on Wednesday, December the 7th, 2022, which starts at 9:30 a.m. Would someone like to move referral? Great. Councillor Klassen, thank you. Is there a seconder? Great. Councillor Meisner, thank you. All those in favor say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. Okay, the motion is referred to tomorrow's standing committee meeting. Okay, so notice the council member motions. Are there no notices of council members' motions for upcoming council meetings? Reminder to please state the title. No, right. Fine. New business. Now we have one item of new business on the agenda today, which are requests for leaves of absence as follows. So all right, thank you very much. All right, I'm going to rewind it a little bit there. Thank you very much. Still new on the job here. So we're back to the notice of council member motions. Reminder to please state the title of the motion and the date of the council meeting on which you intend to move the motion, and be sure to send the title via email to the city clerk. What do I do now? Oh, thank you. Councillor Carr, sorry for the little gremlins in the brain here.
Not a problem. Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've already sent the title and the date to the clerk. So the title is Increasing the Supply of Climate Smart Renewable Energy in Vancouver, and that is for January 17th, 2023.
Thank you very much. Any other? No, great. Okay, so new business. We have one item of new business on the agenda today, which are requests for leaves of absence as follows. Councillor Fry for civic business from meetings on December the 7th, 2022 from 5 p.m. onwards. Councillor Carr for personal reasons from meetings on December the 8th, 2022 from 6 p.m. onwards. Councillor Kirby Young for civic business from meetings on December the 7th, 2022 from 6 p.m. onwards. And then Mayor Sim on December the 14th from civic business from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. for personal reasons. Would someone like to move the motion? Councillor Carr, thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Joe, thank you. All those in favor say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. Great. The motion carries unanimously. Council, are there any other items of new business? Great. Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Mayor. I also am moving a request for leave of absence for December 8th, 6 p.m. onwards for personal reasons. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks. So noted. Any other new business?
No, thank you.
Okay, so would someone like to second? Is that right? Or move? Would someone like to move the motion? Thank you. Councillor Boyle, thank you. Would someone like to second? Councillor Carr, thank you. All those in favor? Sorry, that's right. Okay, Councillor Dominato moved, seconded by Councillor Boyle. Thank you. All those in favor say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. Okay, Council, are there any inquiries or other matters? Councillor Klassen. Oh, the board's lit up here. So, Councillor Dominato, you're done? Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirby-Yung, are you done as well?
No, I have an inquiry.
Okay, please.
Awesome, thank you. I have an inquiry through you to the city manager, if I could. A comment and an inquiry and appreciation to staff for the snow response that we've had recently. I know that we've been working hard and updated our snow protocol last time to put more focus on pedestrians, and I think Vancouver fared reasonably well with all that preparation and effort last time. And I'm just wondering, as with more snow expected, if the city manager can comment again on sort of the readiness and just the activities that folks will see in the coming days with potentially more snow expected.
Thanks very much, Councillor, for the question. So yeah, our teams are watching the weather forecast really carefully, and our, the forecast is calling for continued cold temperatures right around zero with freezing. So both in terms of managing ice and treating the roads for that, as well as being prepared for snow if and when we get that. So yeah, they're very much attuned to that. Our kind of weather response plan is active. We've done some work to replenish our salt stocks, and we have salt on kind of order with, or not order, but is being stored by our vendor as well. So I think we're in really good shape in that regard in terms of preparation.
Okay, I'm going to ask one quick follow-up to that, if I could, and that is with, I know that we're doing kind of priority side walking paths next to bike lanes around hospitals, bus stops, that kind of thing. Still, obviously, a lot of onus on individual property owners to clear sidewalks. Some have done a great job, some lag behind. Are we going to have ongoing communication with respect to the importance for accessibility and safety of people doing that?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. Again, another great point. So yeah, we are continuing to push those types of proactive communications out from our communications department. Our street use inspectors are following up on complaints as well with those property owners who are not, and particularly in commercial high streets and so on, who have not been making sure their sidewalks in front of their businesses are clear of snow. You know, we do have enforcement tools there as well. So that is something that we'll be managing ongoing. Usually the first step is to ensure people are aware of what their obligations are. But if we're not seeing action, then we do have an escalating series of fines that will be imposed.
Okay. Hopefully we can get the word out there and be proactive. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kirby-Yung. Councillor Klassen.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the city manager. Several decades ago, the city of Vancouver had hundreds of rooming houses, sometimes called boarding houses, in the single family neighborhoods of Vancouver. Could staff provide a memo on how many rooming houses there are today, how many there were in previous decades, and what led to their reduction, and what bylaws are directly related to regulating them? I'd be happy to provide the verbiage to that request.
Certainly, Councillor. Yeah, we're happy to follow up with a memo on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Klassen. Councillor Boyle.
Thanks so much. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the passing of one of Vancouver's civic leaders and citizen volunteers. Joan Anderson passed away on November 9th after a rich life enhancing Vancouver's public life through journalism, public broadcasting, and civic engagement. Joan was born and raised in Saskatchewan and chose Vancouver as her home and began a successful career in journalism, which spanned 35 years with the CBC. During this time, she worked as a reporter, host of the morning show and radio producer, senior producer for The National in Toronto, and bureau chief in Washington, D.C. She returned to Vancouver, where she was director of radio and director of programming from 1999 to 2009. Joan was a formidable leader in broadcasting and believed strongly in civic engagement. She believed positive change happens in communities, and she gave generously of her time, her skills, and her energy. She was appointed to the Vancouver Public Library Board for 13 years, for a stint in the 1980s, and then as chair of the board from 2002 to 2008. During this time, she presided over the expansion of Vancouver's library system, including a new branch of Riley Park, preparation for the Nutsamut Strathcona branch, and increased opening hours across the system. She also managed the difficult time when library workers went on strike for 7 weeks in 2007. Beholden to the City Council bargaining mandate, but committed to the important publicly accessible library services as chair of the board, Joan used her influence to try to bring an end to the dispute as quickly as possible. It was a hard position for Joan to be in, as she believed strongly in the work of library workers and knew how important library services were for residents, particularly new immigrants and people living at the margins. Her ability to help lead the library post-strike speaks to her commitment to publicly accessible library services and the people who deliver them. Joan was also committed to improving Vancouver's active transportation systems. An all-weather cyclist, Joan was appointed as a member of Vancouver's Active Transportation Advisory Committee and the Transportation Advisory Committee. She championed access for people who walk, roll, and cycle. She is remembered as very dedicated, hardworking, kind, and an absolute joy to work with and a mentor to many. I have had the chance to speak with many people who knew and worked with and loved her over the last few days and have been so warmed by how much they cared about and miss her. So on behalf of council, I would just like to offer condolences to Joan's partner, Alan Garr, and to their family and friends. And I want to thank Joan for her years of service in making Vancouver the progressive, accessible, and welcoming city that we are. May her memory inspire more action.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Boyle, for acknowledging and recognizing Joan, a community builder. And so thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Mayor, and I'll echo those thanks to Councillor Boyle for acknowledging Joan's work and contributions to the community. And I literally just wrote Alan yesterday, offering my condolences to him and his family. So thank you for bringing that forward. I am, through you, Mayor, I have an inquiry to the city manager. Awkwardly behind me, Paul. But last term, I brought forward a motion with respect to finding a way to expedite permits, sort of a nexus line or queue, if you will, particularly for individuals with disabilities who need to make renovations to, a home or condo, rental apartment. And I think at the time of my inquiry, I discovered we didn't have a way to sort of prioritize individuals with disabilities. And I'm just looking for an update and progress on that work. That motion was passed unanimously. And if I could get an update, whether it be verbal today or in a memo, that would be welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. I'm sorry I'm behind here. So yeah, our staff absolutely have acted on that motion. We are prioritizing those applications when they come through and are aiming to turn them around as quick as we can on our end. I'm happy to follow up with Andrea Law and get you a more detailed memo on that, but I can say for sure that is work that the team is doing.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And then second, just a update is I think a number of councillors had an opportunity to go downstairs and participate in Hubbub 19, the City Studio, which is our Civic Innovation Hub partnership. There was, I think, over 20 presentations made by partner universities and students, and it was absolutely fantastic to experience. And they were tackling issues related to climate change, to housing, to public space activation, and had the honor to sort of offer some comments. But it was really great to see the energy there and the ideas being generated, which help support our staff in carrying out their work in policy development and consequently council as well. It was also nice to see Andrew Pask recognized for his role as being a champion and having been involved for, I think, upwards of 10 years. So just a shout out to the City Studio team and staff that were involved, as well as Andrew and all of the participants from all of the metro area universities and colleges. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fry?
Yeah, thanks. I guess also on other matters and inquiries, just to start, and thanks to the city manager for some of his comments on the snow removal process and the questions from Councillor Kirby-Young. I'm wondering also if we have any, I've been receiving a number of correspondence around the nature of how we salt and the impacts of salt on wildlife, on vegetation, and alike. And if the city is pursuing any alternate salt measures. I understand that in Ontario they're doing a lot of work with beetroot molasses as a more environmental consideration for desalting. Have we explored anything like that at the city?
Thanks, Councillor. I mean, there certainly is an environmental impact of salt. You know, we certainly use much less salt than they do in Ontario, but there is an issue there. I'm happy to follow up with engineering. I don't actually know the answer to that question about whether we've explored alternatives or where we might be with that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. On other matters, I do also appreciate Councillor Dominato's shout out about the Hubbub, which was always a great event, and happy to attend that. Also very, very happy to see many of our colleagues this weekend at the Union Gospel Mission Christmas feeding, including our illustrious mayor. And it was really nice to see so many of us out there, and the great work that they're doing at UGM, and including a number of volunteers who are from our staff, and that was really great to see as well. City of Vancouver staff who are volunteering in their free time to support the community. And also on matters of supporting the community, I just want to acknowledge, and many of us will know that longtime Chinatown activist Sid Chow Tan passed away in September. There is a celebration of his life scheduled for December at the Russian Hall. And just want to acknowledge Sid had previously run for city council. He'd spoken to city council many times. I got to know Sid on the Downtown Eastside Local Area Plan. And in fact, in our efforts to save the Ming Sun Uchida building on Powell Street, and we actually rolled up our sleeves and helped to preserve some of the building that was collapsing. And Sid was a great guy, and he was really, I think, understated in his work to address redress and the Chinese head tax. And it was Sid actually left his job as a stockbroker to do that work in community. And he was a very humble guy, but he did a lot of work in the Downtown East Side. And I do want to acknowledge that, and that there will be a celebration of life in the community out of the Russian Hall on December 22nd for Sid Chow Tan. That's it for me. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Sorry, what time is the celebration of life at?
Good question. I'll have to get back to you, but I'll circulate it.
Awesome. And thank you very much for acknowledging Sid and his contributions to our city. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I forgot one inquiry that I wanted to make through you, if I could, to the city manager. And it's just with respect to a memo that council received November 24th on preparing for shared electric kick scooter pilot. As you know, I ask often about where we are in terms of progress so that we move beyond just privately owned scooters, but to a shared program. So I really appreciated the update based on the direction from council to move forward with the shared program. I have a question with respect to the timeline, given it's December 2022 now, and it's suggested an RFP will be issued, but not until the fall of 2023, so about a year away. And I know that staff have noted that they feel there's a lot of due diligence to be done. I'm wondering if it needs to take that long, and secondly, if we do issue an RFP in fall of 2023, if we can be working towards a spring 2024 start for that program, which I understand is an ideal time of year to sort of, generally these things are sort of phased in thoughtfully and to time these things. So I wonder if I can get some perspective on that.
Sure. Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, I understand the question around timeline and if there's a way to speed that up or when the implementation timeline would be. So I'm happy to follow up with the team that's been looking at that and get you some additional answers.
Okay, thanks. I would appreciate that because Mike can just sort of, in terms of forming that inquiry back, one of the concerns that I have is that people continue to purchase private scooters at a record rate. And so I actually think that there's a good window of opportunity to get people into some of the shared devices.
Right. Okay. Thank you
Okay,
for that.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no one else in the queue, may we have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Councillor Clausen, thank you very much. Seconder? Councillor Meisner, thank you. All those in favor say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. All right, this meeting is adjourned.